Welcome to the Greg Struss Show. I'm Greg Struss, coming to you almost live and direct here from Cable Television City in the west side of Chicago. Glad to have you along, and I am grateful that you're joining us. Wherever you are tuning in, really appreciate it. And of course, we're here every week. Lots of things going on. Tonight we're going to talk about people, places, and things as it applies to addiction and recovery, and what's going on in current events, and maybe a job. All right, people, places, and things are very important because they can contribute to our continuing on a certain way or maybe taking a new path. So we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But first, I want to talk about what's been going on in Portland, Oregon, okay, with ICE agents, all right? There's a complex there where ICE agents have been performing their business, okay? They deal with issues at the border. The mayor of Portland also is the president of the Police and Fire Commission, which means that that individual controls all of the jobs or has a lot of power over the other board members, you know, that hire and fire police and fire personnel. What happened recently is that people have been, like, not staking out, but they've been sitting in front of this governmental agency and standing in the way of people leaving and entering, and have been causing quite a scene and quite a ruckus. I'm just kind of wondering, having worked in a police department, all right, and I saw a lot of different things. Now, a lot of people will say, now, this is back a while ago, all right, at least 10 years ago. And it was different. Now, a lot of police agencies no longer have their own dispatch or telecommunicators, their 911 center. Due to costs, unions, et cetera, budgets, they found a way to outsource that particular division of a police department. And to mixed results, in my opinion, because I found, having worked in a singular PSAP, public service answering point, which is what a dispatch center is, all right? It's a secure area with radio and television, radio, computer, and telephone communications, all right? So it's a secured area. No one else is allowed in there except like either the director, maybe a chief of police, but 911 communications people. So what happened is a lot of these towns and cities found a way to save on pensions and et cetera by going to what's known as a combined center. So you're taking one dispatcher, all right, or two dispatchers for one town, and now putting it out in kind of like a call center, which is secured. It's a separate area and not really in a police department anymore in most cases. And so what happens is these individuals now are dispatching for 5 or 6 towns. So do you see what happens? The officer on the street kind of now becomes a number instead of immediate, because there's just too much radio traffic. Radio traffic is when people are talking, you try to get on. When people aren't talking, you don't walk over people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So where am I going with this story? So anyway, it changed, and anyway, what was I learning? Okay, so anyway, it changes, all right, that people aren't in that. But the fact is that the law is the law. And if a federal agency is calling for help, like ICE did, and Portland was ordered by their mayor and the president of the Police and Fire Commission not to respond and assist this particular agency because he doesn't believe in the job that they perform. Now, I don't know if they're going to come under any kind of heat, but I'm just wondering, like, what is this chief about? And therein lies the political problem, because are you not going to listen to your boss, even if he is essentially breaking the law? So I'm wondering, like, where is the integrity in not only the law, but in being, you know, what is it, to protect and serve? So people could get killed or injured, but because he said, the mayor of Portland said not to respond to these calls, the police officers aren't responding to the calls. And I don't see where this is okay. All right, this is based on one man's opinion. all right, and belief system, and not based on what the law is. So if somebody's causing, a disturbance someplace and the police are summoned, they're supposed to respond. But evidently not in this case, and I think that's dangerous for a number of reasons. One, it invites potential violence from other folks that may want to come in and protect those people or assist the government agency to do their job, where the police aren't. So what are we going to get into over here? A potential civil war between differing factions, like an Antifa, and maybe like one of these militias getting together? I mean, is anyone thinking about this stuff? And really where that political divide is coming in. And of course, how people, places, and things kind of plays into that. And we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later on. I'm saying a lot of little bits. I'm telling you, it's been this heat out here. But anyway, in the meantime, I'm Greg. This is The Greg Struss Show, and we are reinventing community television here from the west side of Chicago. Thank you for joining us, and we'll be back in just a moment. Now, something's been bugging me. Scott, here we have our last show of last season in April. We have this big party, and I keep hearing about how Scott wants his dish back. So we bring the dish back, and then you're not here the one week, and the thing's been sitting back there, so I'm going to give you, now this is, what kind of dish is this?
Corningware.
Corningware? We'll do the Price is Right thing. So you can be more than happy to take that home, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks so much. I love doing some, unfinished business. Welcome back to the Greg Struss Show. I'm Greg Struss. Now, before the break, we were talking about, what's going on in Portland with Antifa. It's a group that has been antagonizing ICE offices. All right, ICE is affiliated with doing jobs at the border, ensuring that people are not coming in illegally. I mean, that's their job. And making arrests based on immigration issues, all right? That's the law. Now, I don't understand where the mayor of Portland can deny assistance to federal agents who are being harassed by people, and they're outnumbered. And I just don't think that's right, regardless of what the political aspects are. Whether or not someone believes in what someone's job function is, that person still, as an American and as a federal agent, deserves police assistance. They deserve to be safe. And the things that are happening where Antifa and some of these other groups are now harassing people that work for the Trump administration while they're out eating kind of goes against civil rights and all the work that other people have done, like Dr. Martin Luther King, and I talked about this last time, and about women being able to vote. I really believe that these things are sacred, and nobody's recognizing at how folks are stepping out of that and not respecting each other. Civil rights, the fact that people have the right to be protected when, they have the right to be protected to go to work. And especially if you're working for a federal agency. So I don't know, this is going to be quite interesting in what happens and who's going to suffer the fallout. To me, I think this mayor, once this comes to a head, but of course, Portland is a different kind of city, leans a different way politically, And maybe he will be protected. I don't know. But it goes to show, and I think what my point was when working in a police department, is knowing the politics and the fact that, you know, trustees or aldermen, alderwomen come in, and the command staff would be like, "Oh, how are you?" Because everybody wanted to suck up to the politicians, because that's the boss. And when the politician asked for something, it was done, because that politician was important. Why? Because they're the ones that can make your life miserable if you don't do what they want. Not to say that every town and city is like that, but I saw some of that. And I'm sure there were other things that went on as well. And when politics gets in the way of the law and doing what's right, okay? So I already talked about that stuff, but tonight I want to talk about people, places, and things, and how this kind of relates to the situation. Because these are some things that I've kind of been facing in my life. And when we talk about recovery, recovery from an addiction and overcoming that addiction, and finding that new way, finding the solution of moving forward in life and getting back on track, or starting anew, as some of us will refer to it. People, places, and things, and how does that play into it? I'll give you an example. I noticed in my own life that, that things were not always what they appeared to be in my family relationships, all right? We all helped each other, and there were times that we all kind of took advantage of each other. But I found that after I quit drinking and after I made some changes in my life, that I had to start essentially cutting back and cutting people off, because they remembered me in a certain frame of mind and kind of kept talking about things and bringing things back to a point in time that I'm not really proud of, okay? I can minimize whatever it was, that happened. But the truth is that I changed, I grew. And unfortunately, when one person goes for help and that family unit does not, even though we've been away from each other, they have their families and I have my life, the fact is that certain issues kind of seep into that relationship or those relationships. And what I noticed is that as I've gotten further away from family, my life has improved. Now, am I proud to admit that it's because I'm not talking with things? I have to get away from the negativity. So so where do the people, places, and things come into play in that? Well, the people who were the people in my life. Yes, they supported me. I was able to get through that period of time and then move beyond it. But unfortunately, whenever we get together still, there's still stories that come up from that period of time that I'm not really willing to laugh at anymore, because I lived through that. And, when you work in certain situations, there's a culture, I talked about in police work, there's a culture that, sick humor, in a sense, or humor that would be deemed inappropriate to most people. But when people are seeing what police officers see and what first responders, like 911 operators, kind of deal with on the phone, yeah, it's kind of morbid, but it's a coping mechanism, so people don't understand that. So where the people, places, and things came in for me is that, wow, I came to realize that I changed, and that as much as I wanted people to accept me in my new way of life and the new, and not to say that my values and things changed, it's just my behavior changed. And it was only but a short period of time that I probably, was off track. But it's taken time, and it's taken energy, and it's taken effort, and it's really taken time, taken disassociating myself with situations that are troublesome for me, that bother me, that give me a resentment. And I don't need to live with a resentment today based on, how I grew up or what we believed in or what have you. So I'm my own person, and if people don't want to accept me for who I am, or constantly badger me or try to manipulate me or whatever that is, then I have the right to say, you know what, this is not a healthy relationship for me anymore, and I got to become a ghost, and that's what I do. So some of the things that I've kind of come into realize recently is, like with work, it's time to move on. It's been time for me to move on. And I've fought this for a long time because I got kind of comfortable being complacent. And I used to be somebody that would say, oh, well, I would never settle for that. And life happens. I've been talking more about the things that I'd like to do with TV, and I've talked about that for a number of years. And recently an opportunity has presented itself, and now I'm kind of like panicky. And that self-doubt kind of comes in of, well, this is where I've been, all right? It's like community television isn't really viewed in the professional sector of television or media as being something that's desirable. Why? Because anybody can do it, and it's anybody's voice, and production values usually aren't great, and whatever it is. I think there's great shows on community television. Not just speaking for ours, but but people do hard work, and they do good work. But there definitely is. As you talk to people in the industry and what have you, and there is a mindset, the amateurishness, and I don't really buy into that all. I've done this because I've enjoyed it. It's been a way to be an outlet, and it's also been a means in which to continue, keeping my skills fresh, so to speak. So being on air and being able to talk and fill time or whatever that is and communicate. And now as I want to get closer to it professionally, I'm thinking to myself, well, what does all this experience in community television mean? Never mind, the Channel 66, WGBO TV, never mind the WIIN TV 56, never mind WWMT CBS, never mind WGVU, WGVK in Grand Rapids. It's like, that was years ago. But doesn't it amount to something? And that's what I got to get through. I got to get through the fact that, it's time to move beyond my scope and my way of thinking and my current reality. And it's very painful because it's like I'm kind of by myself at 50. And a lot of times people get out of things at 50 because they're getting older. And, what happened to the 20 years before? I can't live in the past of saying, yeah, I had things that went on, and self-doubt crippled me, and other things. So what am I doing? I'm putting one foot in front of the other and trying to reach out to some people and say, look, I'm starting to move towards the direction that I want to be in, that I've talked about being in, and I just need somebody to talk to. So that's part of the change. So changing the people, instead of the people that I currently work with who probably don't understand and who have settled for what they're doing. And that's okay because that works for them. But it's no longer working for me. It hasn't worked for me for a long time. I felt very uncomfortable with it. And now it's like, okay, I'm getting closer to it, but wow, what's my life going to be like? And again, getting into those new people, going to new places and doing new things, which all contribute to what? Further growth, right? Better financial opportunity, and of course getting, utilizing my skill sets in my particular field, which is television, radio, media. And what's wrong with that? I haven't talked about it in a long time. I've had people tell me, it's like, why aren't you on TV somewhere? You're that good. And I guess I just haven't had that oversized ego and saying, I'll be on CBS 2 next week. Instead of just going there and saying, you know what, here I am. And the one thing, I really feel that all the things that I've done in my life, selling cars, doing mortgages, producing shows, counseling, all of those things have, and living in different areas, living in Michigan, living in Seattle, living in Los Angeles. It may look like on a resume that I kind of hopped from here to there. Yeah, maybe I pulled some geographics, but I think deep down and on a human level, it's made me more broad-minded. Okay, in that I understand different cultures, I understand different belief systems, I understand different people. But now I want to do it on the air. I don't want to settle for doing it, working for a counseling agency that only wants to pay $15 an hour. Now, minimum wage in some cities is $15 an hour. We're dealing with life or death in addiction counseling. Now I consider myself more of a communications counselor. Because I think communication is important to changing. because we're discussing things. It's, it's open and putting it out in the universe. And I think that's very important as we move on from our addiction or move on from that uncomfortable situation in life. And it's okay to move on. It's painful to move on. And let's say, like, my mother and father passed away. I also had a blessing of having another family. So I had my family of origin, and I had my family in the sense of choice, in that they welcomed me into their, into their home and in their lives, and a very special relationship. But it soured, and that's something I've been dealing with for the better part of a decade. I haven't talked to my other mom. I haven't talked to my other siblings in over a decade. And yeah, a lot of it was on me, okay? But I also realized that, you know what? This is not working for me anymore. And it wasn't, and maybe there's some selfishness in that. But I sensed that there was a lot of manipulation in that, well, that's not the way I would think, Gregory, or that's not what I would want for you, Gregory. And I understand that that's what a parent does. But as I listen to people talking today about their parents and about parental influence, I am just blown away because I'm like void. It's like that's a part of my life that I don't know how to communicate that way anymore. It's like I've talked with other counselors and I've talked with a mentor regarding that information or regarding, what happened to the other family in my life. And you ought to go up there and knock at the door. But it's that big weight on my shoulders of, will they accept me? And more so, is it fair? Is it fair of me to go and knock on that door and say, well, here I am after missing Dad's funeral. Here I am after missing the birth of, siblings' offspring. And I don't know if it would be fair to knock on the door after 10 or 11 years and say, oh, well, here I am. I know I owe an apology. I have to do an amends. And that's something that I have dealt with. Now, I've been at peace on a certain level, but it does come up every once in a while because, I don't feel good about it. It wasn't representative of who I am as a person and as a man. And I felt that they deserved better of me. And in a letter that I wrote about 9 years ago about 8.5 years ago when I quit drinking and was going through some things. And I talk about this not because of making myself vulnerable, but to share it in that experience and what I've dealt with ever since. Just because we stop drinking doesn't mean that the world stops for us. Doesn't mean that people stop dying. It doesn't mean that people stop having kids. It doesn't mean that, life stops or that things change because Greg got sober or Greg stopped drinking. The fact is that things do change. And unfortunately, one of those things is relationships and what I tolerate. And really what people tolerated me. They were, it happened. And I have to be accountable for that. And I don't understand, and where I'm at right now is I'm not really sure how I could move forward with that. So much has been said, so much was done. And, I've seen people say, well, it was because I was drinking that I was that way. And to me, that's not accountability. It's not saying the reasons why. The pain of loss or the pain of not feeling as though I measured up to someone else's expectations is something that I kind of fought a lot in my life. And again, I share this only because I hope that it empowers you or somebody else to make a change and say, you know what, there's nothing wrong with you. I had someone explain to me at 60 years old that they went through a divorce. And, they're of a particular culture, which also has a religious value. And, she talked about how her mother, who was 80 years old, said, well, he still provides for you. And I told this individual, I just said, I'm very proud of you for making that decision. And you know what? You did what was right for you. And sometimes when we do things that are right for us, it's not right for everybody else. And we're going to face fallout for that. But getting back to the people, places, and things, when I change the people in my life, I get away from the negativity. I get away from like-minded people, hopefully. Like-minded meaning people that think and believe like I do. All right, when I say believe, maybe they're overcoming some things in their own life and they understand. So having that support system is very important. And you know, where family may have been supportive in the past, now family's kind of a buzzkill, because, you know, if I change, maybe it brings some things up that maybe they need to change. And I just don't want to get into it. There's just too much baggage. We're all older now, and I don't know. That's where I'm at with that. And I'm at peace with it. It kind of crops up every once in a while that, okay, well, maybe I need to do something else about it, but I don't know. So I changed my people. I need to change people again, because professionally I need to be around people that are doing what I want to do. So how do I do that? I have to take action. Maybe write a letter to somebody and say, can I come and watch your show? Could I talk to you a little bit? Those are things that I used to do. And then all of a sudden I just kind of shut down one day. And I don't want to do that anymore. So the places come in, like where did I used to hang out? What did I used to do? Those things can serve as triggers, or they can serve as further growth. So I need to be around positive energy and positive people, and people that can open doors for me. And really, it's up to me to open doors, because if I'm a nice guy, which I am, I'm also street, and I care. So I need to give myself more credit in saying, you know what, you have what it takes to succeed. I know I have what it takes to succeed. It's time to succeed at the level that I want to succeed, and therein lies the pressure. But you know what? I'm getting excited about it, and it's time to do it. And I am going to do it, and I am doing it. And I hope that kind of lifts you up today and makes some sense for you. Because I know there's folks out there that are going through things with family that they can't make sense of. And it's okay to take a break. And you know what? It's okay to say goodbye. I don't need this anymore, and I need to go on with my life. As painful as that is, all right? Because when we give up something we love and hate, like a relationship or like a drug or alcohol or whatever it is, there's big changes that come in with that. And especially when we're not around it anymore, and we've been around all those people that are doing the same thing. That, you know, we say goodbye to that social setting. We say goodbye to all those things, and all of a sudden we're like this little island. And it passes, but it takes work and effort and staying away from toxic relationships. So that's where I'm at with all of it. You can watch The Greg Struss Show every Wednesday night here on Xfinity Comcast, Channel 19, or on YouTube.com with the search words Greg Struss Show. I love to hear from you, and I enjoy it, and I hope that some of this made sense today. Maybe you're going through some things, thinking about some things, and if I can help you with that, please drop me a line at gstrussman@gmail.com. Greg Struss, thank you for watching. We'll see you again next time. Goodbye, everybody.